Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And I certainly wasn't expecting to be talking about the events that took place today. Thomas Tuchel has been sacked as Chelsea head coach after last night's 1-0 defeat to Dynamo Zagreb in the Champions League. He is no longer Chelsea manager after 100 games in charge, also 100 days in charge with Todd Boehly as well. Is that a coincidence? Who knows? But yep, Tuchel was relieved of his duties. Players were informed via text message before reporting to Cobham at 2 p.m. this afternoon. I'm shocked at this one. I really am. I'm not shocked in terms of I'm shocked it's happened. I'm shocked that it's happened this quickly. And what I'm more shocked about is the fact that why back this manager? Why come in and give this manager the money to spend to bring in his own players to build for a project? Why as an ownership group say that this is your guy and this is the guy that you want to take the club forward? You're discussing a new contract with him 2 weeks ago, for fuck's sake. Like how can you 2 weeks ago be the guy that's going to get a new deal and then 6 games into the season he's suddenly not your guy? We're trying to build a project here. This is a massive rebuild. You cannot give someone 6 games under a new ownership with new players and then decide that enough is enough. It's the same people that were saying Lampard should have got more time are the ones that are saying Tuchel had his chance. It's utter nonsense. It really is. You've got to be given an opportunity to change fortunes around. Yes, things were difficult, but he's had so much to deal with on his plate in terms of the sanctions last year. Being the spokesperson for the club with having to front very difficult questions about Ukraine and whatnot. Something that a football manager shouldn't have to be discussing. The senior figures at the club were hiding. Where were they? He was hung out to dry by the old regime, and he's been hung out to dry by the new regime as well. Todd Boehly comes in. I like what he's done so far. He's heavily invested. He's on board with it. He wants to bring his own people in certain departments. I get it. That's what you do when you're a new guy, but don't come in talking about the long-term projects and stuff, saying Thomas Tuchel's your guy. Talk about offering a new contract potentially, back him with all this money to bring his players in, and then bin him off after 6 games. Like that, it makes no sense. If he's not how can he be your guy and then 6 games into the season he's suddenly not your guy? You can't judge someone's project building capabilities on 6 games. Like it's just not. For me, it's unacceptable that this has happened, or that it's happened this soon without a proper chance. I mean, I really thought we might have changed the corner. I understand the point of view that new owners come in and they might want to put their own guy in. But if new owners came in and they want to put their own guy in, do it when you come in. Don't give him a whole transfer window. Don't give him his players. Don't give him 6 games of the season. Like if you want to come in and make a change when you come in. Don't do what you've done. I mean, there's so much to unpack, but George, just your initial thoughts first, mate, before we kind of delve a bit deeper into things. So a lot of stuff has come out today.
Well, yeah, I'm obviously wearing this in memory of Thomas Tuchel, that famous night in Porto. So I thought I'd whack that on, but that's as far as my sentiment goes with Thomas Tuchel, unfortunately. I'm on the other side, and actually, I've been listening to a lot of the forums, a lot of the YouTube channels that I follow, and the mainstreams, and no one's really got my viewpoint in the fact that I saw this coming, and I think I saw it coming for a while, and I was one of those Tuchel out people. Not because I want Tuchel to be sacked, not because I'm not thankful for what he's done for the club. He's the first person to win the Super Cup, the World Cup Championships. He's got the highest win percentage at the club. I think just below Conte, perhaps.
With 16, only 16 defeats in his 100 games.
Yeah, and I think he only lasted, I think it was 18 days more than Frank Lampard. So, yeah. But look, I just think there's a point in time, and I think people are very erratic in saying this whole 6 games business. But let's be honest, it hasn't been 6 games, has it? It's been
but it's 6 games. But this is what I don't think you're understanding. It's 6 games with his players, his ones that he wanted. It's 6 games under the new ownership.
Yeah, but I think you say that Chelsea can't change. Why back him? Why back him? But Chelsea Football Club had to back whoever is in charge with money. We couldn't just not spend anything in the window at all and then be like,
I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is, like, if you've got doubts about this manager and you're not sure about him, get rid of him before the window even starts, before you start seriously bringing players in, because now we're just left in a mess.
Are we in a mess? Chelsea have done this for years and we've been successful with it. So I don't. I don't see why everyone's so in uproar with Thomas Tuchel, but haven't been in uproar with previous ones when people have done just as bad, if not less damage, and have got sacked for it. Ancelotti winning the double, got sacked. Conte,
I was fuming with that. I was fuming
with
a lot.
Yeah. But then we went on to win things. Frank Lampard got sacked. We went on to win the Champions League. Tuchel got sacked. What's next for Chelsea? We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Obviously, there are things that haven't added up, and I agree with that. We had a conversation this afternoon, didn't we, about the whole Aubameyang business. That's Tuchel's guy. He wanted to create a relationship with him. That's a clear Thomas Tuchel signing for Aubameyang, and he's been given 70 minutes to play with him, and then that's it. That confuses me. But the whole thing this morning doesn't confuse me in the slightest. I think Chelsea. I think they wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, and once they backed him, said, "Look, you've got to hit the ground running." He hasn't done that, and it's been below poor, I would say, not just in terms of results, but in performances as well. And they probably thought, let's hit the button early doors before we get into a deeper mess. As harsh as that sounds, I saw it coming.
I'm not suggesting like it wasn't on the cards. It potentially was, but to do it like this.
At what point do you want it? At what point? 10 defeats, and then you want it? What do you
want? What I'm saying is that how can you be so sure after 6 games that this isn't right? Like that's what I'm saying. Though what I'm saying is like you could like look. They made their decision. Whatever they're the owners. They do what they want. But what I'm saying is that why couldn't it have waited to the end of the international break? As in, like, why couldn't it have waited another month? Was it really? Look, I know it wasn't great. I've been the first one to say that we've been playing really shit. We've struggled this season. The results have not been good enough. The performances have not been good enough. The football's crap and whatnot. Yeah, agreed. But at the same time, is sacking the manager the actual answer to the thing? I think people are living in the clouds if they think getting rid of the manager is going to solve all our issues. We're going to have the same issues under Graham Potter. We're not going to suddenly have a new manager coming in and everything's fine. Tuchel, yeah, part of the problem for sure. He wasn't getting the best out of the players. The football wasn't good enough. He was struggling to implement ideas. I think we perhaps been worked out. But don't tell me that now that Thomas Tuchel's gone, everything's going to be fine at Chelsea, because that's utter rubbish.
But is it?
Yeah, of course it is. It's utter rubbish.
Chelsea have done this. Chelsea have done this for years. Where a new manager
you multiple times you call for players to be given time, managers to be given time. You were very strong.
I called for one manager to be given time, who was Frank Lampard.
Yeah, and if this was Frank Lampard in charge now, and he'd been sacked for this under this same ownership group, you wouldn't be saying the same thing that you're saying now. And that's the point. Like, people have got kind of biases. I get it. Some fans will prefer other managers more and whatnot. Some people might like Frank a lot more than Thomas Tuchel and think he's been harsh done by, and think Tuchel's not been harsh done by. But I just look at it and think you've lost 16 games out of 100. You've won the Champions League, you've won the Club World Cup, you've won the Super Cup. You've taken Chelsea to 6 out of a possible 7 available finals in your tenure. The only knockout defeat you've suffered is an extra time defeat to Real Madrid in a Bernabeu. Yes, I know we lost a few of those domestic cup finals. We let 1 goal in open play in those games. We were 2 penalty shootouts away from 2 trophies, extra trophies. Like, we're talking fine margins here. I know football's fine margins, but let's not pretend that this is like, this was sack-worthy material when you look back at his reign. Yes, it's not been good enough this season, but we're only 5 points off the top of the league. No one's expecting Chelsea to win the league this season. So was it really that bad in terms of, are we in a diabolical position? I don't think we're in a situation where we had to get rid of the manager.
Yeah, but you can reel off all of those things, but I could just do exactly the same. You could say Brentford came to Stamford Bridge, absolutely battered us.
Oh, of course.
Battered us. Can't score goals. Only 8 home wins all season last season. just as much as you can say the positives, you can say the negatives. Hasn't got a single player in the forward line going for a year and a half.
The forward line's been poor, yeah.
Look, of course, it's not. It's harsh. Both of them are. Both, Frank Lampard, who I said gave more time, I thought it was harsh. Tuchel, it is harsh, but the reality is, new owners have come in. They've wanted to make a statement, and they have done. Whether you agree with it or not, that's how Chelsea have gone for the last 15 years. I disagree. I think
this is a new ownership group, though. We have to move away from this short-term.
We're not going to.
You can't just be like, oh, we want long-term managers. You want to build a project, and then fucking bin someone off 6 games into your new project.
But isn't he part of the old project though? Because he's an old manager.
Well, maybe so, but that's my point. Then, if you're a new ownership group coming in and you want to bring your own manager in, don't spend £250 million. Don't wait 6 games into the season and then decide he's not the right guy. If he's not the right guy, or he's not your guy and you don't want him, get rid of him before the season's even started. Like, yes, we'd be pissed. Yes, we'd be fuming. Like if Tuchel had been sacked before the season starts, but at least by doing it, if they did it that way, you get a new guy in, and then you're building from there. Now we've got the next manager coming in, which we'll come on to in due course, is going to inherit players that he may or may not want. Look, I'm not saying that Potter's going to be thinking, oh, fuck, I've been left with Fofana, Koulibaly, Cucurella, and Raheem Sterling. I'm not suggesting he'd be fuming with that, but this is how we get in such a mess. We see the level of the rebuild that's been required this summer so far, and it's because of short-termism, constant hiring and firing of managers, that you end up with a load of players that is from all different managers, all different styles of play, all suited to different things. And then you try and build a project to get rid of them and bring in the players that manager wants to try and build, but you get rid of them after 6 games.
Yes, but you could argue that Chelsea, by the way that they've done things with hiring and firing staff, has been one of the best models, because not only have we been the most successful club, but actually, if you look at the whole Premier League, I think other than Sean Dyche, no one's really stayed at their club more than 6-7 years. And that's looking towards Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola now. And you can see Jurgen Klopp even starting to struggle now.
Yeah, but he's been afforded 6-7 years. Like, could you imagine a manager imagine if we had Jurgen Klopp or Pep?
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that
how embarrassing would it be that we would have sacked them? Like in 2016-17.
Can we really regret?
Yeah, but in 16-17, I think Pep's first season or second season, I can't remember now, they went on a similar run. They didn't win for 4 games in the league. They dropped out of the cups. They dropped out of the Champions League, I think, either the last 16 or the quarterfinals. If that was Chelsea, we would have sacked him. Like, you can't bring managers in that are top-class managers, ask them to build a project, and then the first time the going gets tough, which it will get tough, you're going to have bumps in the road on a project. And then the first point, you just hit the eject button. You cannot operate like that because you're not going to get anywhere.
But we have, though, because we've won everything.
But what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about league titles. We are never going to win a league title. We're never going to win a league title by doing this.
I disagree with that, because I think you can. I mean, Conte came in and changed it completely.
Did it in his first season. Won it in his first season. What I'm saying is, if you're not going to give a manager time, how are we realistically now, as a club, you need to bring a manager in and need to have them for 4, 5, 6 years, realistically, let them build their squad and implement their ideas if you're going to challenge for the Premier League title. I cannot see a situation where Graham Potter's going to come in. He's not going to win. Chelsea are not going to win the league, in my opinion, in the next 5 years. They're just not. So if it's a 5-year project under Potter, and maybe in 4 or 5 years we win the league, what are we going to do when the going gets tough under Graham Potter? Because it's going to get tough. Are we going to be saying the same thing again, calling for the manager to go? It's an endless cycle.
Well, we're going to be having the same conversation probably a year, maybe more down the line, with Potter being sacked, and that's the reality of how.
It's just ridiculous.
But then, do we swap everything that we've won in the model that we've done? Everyone's almost trying to copy us because they want to win everything.
I know, but what I'm saying is, though, like, if we want to progress as a football club, we need to, if we want a long-term, if we want a project manager, right, and to come in and someone to be here for 4, 5, 6 years, we have to accept that there is going to be a lot of short-term pain for long-term gain. We have to reevaluate I think as fans, you've been spoiled. We have to reevaluate our expectations of what Chelsea are right now. Chelsea right now are not a Premier League winning team. We're a team that might win a couple of could win a domestic cup, but we are a top 4 team. We are not challenging for the Premier League. We're not a Premier League winning title side. We're trying to build something for the future. We need to accept that we cannot, at the first time of asking, press the eject button on a project, because you're never going to have a project. It's like buying buying a load of fancy materials to build a house. You lay 3 bricks and then you just knock it down, and you bring someone in to build the same house. Like it doesn't make sense. There's going to be difficulties along the way, and we have to accept that as fans. And the board need to realise that when a manager comes in, it takes time. It takes more than 6 games. It takes more than a season to build something. And I don't understand why people aren't realising this.
Well, there is a naivety on their part, because we know full well that, yes, and you've said it in previous shows, that very good businessman, obviously been very successful in other sports, but football is a whole different entity, and he's got a lot to learn. And I think it's been naive in the sense that he's taken so many roles and responsibilities within the club with such lack of knowledge, and also getting rid of so many people from upstairs who would have handed down that knowledge to him. But I still disagree with this, because I think Chelsea, we have to. You can try and envisage this long project and all the rest of it, but realistically, no Premier League team does it, and we haven't done it for 15, 20 years.
The 2 standout teams in Liverpool and City are doing it.
They are. They're okay. They're.
I think Arsenal under Arteta. There was a couple of times where in Arteta's reign where you could easily see Arteta being sacked. They could have pulled the trigger a couple of times. They didn't. If that was Chelsea,
but they are different though, because they've won jack shit. They're not.
No, look, I get it. They've won an FA Cup or whatnot, fine. But what I'm saying is, like, if you give managers time, they will deliver. Like they will. Managers of a top quality, but managers of managers of a high quality. What I'm saying is that if we're just given Tuchel the time, I think this could have been turned around. I understand. Like, we'll get onto the things that are happening behind the scenes and whatnot, and it's clear that from the stuff that's coming out today, which we'll get onto, that not all was well. And Tuchel has been annoyed by a number of things from Boehly, and Boehly's been annoyed by a number of things from Thomas Tuchel as well. But I just feel that, if you're going to build a project, which is what these owners are constantly saying, we want guys here for the long term. Todd Boehly likes having people here long term. At his American thing, the LA Dodgers, he's had the guy in charge for 7 years. He's just signed a new 3-year deal. Okay, he likes having long term people in. Long termism in football, does it exist? I'm not so sure. Maybe not. But you've got to give someone more. We've got to stop replacing the manager every 18 months to 2 years, because
under what basis though? Under what basis? We've been successful.
Because we're just not going to go anywhere. Like, in terms of challenging for a league,
we just won the Champions League a year and a bit.
Yeah, but in terms of winning Premier League titles, which is we want to do, we've not been close to a Premier League title for 7 years now. We don't look anywhere near it at the moment. I don't think we'll be anywhere near it in the next 2 or 3 years. And the reason for that is because we haven't allowed anyone to build a squad capable of doing it. I think people forget that under Thomas Tuchel, in his first full season, we were playing some phenomenal football. We were flying. We were top of the league. Ben Chilwell gets injured. Reece James gets injured. It kind of all falls apart. People got short memories. 2 of the most important players to that system, a number of injury issues there, and things start to fall apart. It's unfortunate. Injuries happen, but for them to all happen at the same time, for them to happen to key players in several positions, people have got short memories that things weren't that bad under Tuchel. We were very, very close. And you've said yourself that if James and Chilwell had kept fit, who knows what would have happened? We've been unlucky in the circumstances. I really do think that Tuchel has been hard done by. And
that's all if buts and maybes. Werner, like I saw on Twitter, Werner scored all those tap-ins for Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard could still be in charge.
No, but what I'm saying is, you've got to circumstantially, you've got to realise that Tuchel is not. Look, I'm not saying he's been perfect. There's several things that I think he could do better on, and he's not beyond criticism whatsoever. But what I'm saying is, is there really, the way that he's conducted himself at Chelsea has been exemplary.
Yeah.
And I just think for everything that's gone on, he's had to go through stuff that no manager should ever have to go through. And then all on top of that, all the extracurricular activities, I guess I'll call them, in the summer. Tuchel just wants to be a coach. I think it was quite telling, those words, when I can't remember after which game it was, whatever the first game after the window closing was, that he said, I'm looking forward to just being a football coach again. The extra stuff has taken its toll on him. It's taken his attention away from doing what he does best, and that's coaching the team day in, day out on the training pitch and trying to get his ideas across. I don't think there's any coincidence in terms of the fact that with all this extra stuff, his attention's not been fully on the team. And this is probably some of the worst football that we've played in his reign. I don't think those two are like a coincidence at all. I think it's very much the case that there's no surprise to me that with less focus on the football, because he's having to do other things that he shouldn't be doing because there's a lack of a director of football and whatnot, that suddenly our football suffered. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think people will get the wrong end of the stick that I'm like I go to Stamford Bridge with the Tuchel out banner every week, and
you're fucking mates with Rory Jennings.
I like Thomas Tuchel, but I just think, people kicking up in arms about. I know you said about the project, but I'm just saying for the last 15, 20 years, we've done this and we've been.
No, I fully get that point.
I completely now expect Potter to come in. We have a big bounce. He's suddenly going to get a tune out of players that Tuchel couldn't go. We get the wins. We might even win a trophy at the end of it. And then people will soon forget about this whole longevity thing. And yes, eventually it might bite us in the arse. But are we swapping what we've done in the last 20 years to say, but we would have liked to coach for like an Arsene Wenger who just rotted the club to the point where they wanted to do this longevity thing, and it ended up being so sour that they took almost as much time since he's left to rebuild to where they are now.
I'm not saying for Tuchel to stay for like 20 odd years or anything like that, but I mean, what's this? Second penalty to Napoli. Well, maybe Klopp will get sacked in the morning and we can appoint him.
Well, look, it's not going well for Klopp. I think that's the nature of the beast. And look, it's given them, I think what it has done is it's given them some, I know you'll obviously come on to the fact that this wasn't a impulse sacking, but what the poor results have done is given the ownership some leverage to say, well, to be fair, we've given you a chance in the first couple, and it's been very poor. I mean, it's not just been bad, it's been really bad.
It has.
If we were winning the first 6 games and we were cruising, he's not sacked, is he? But
I don't know. I think it maybe just boots it a little bit further down the line. But
it does.
Things weren't going well. That's for sure. I mean, I just want to bring up. I'm just going to find it in a sec. I just want to bring up a couple of reasons that have been given as to why Thomas Tuchel was sacked. I'm just going to scroll down and find it. And there's some interesting things on Anthony Gordon as well. The fact that Tuchel actually didn't want Anthony Gordon. And there was a bit of a falling out about that as well. I'm just going to find it now if I can. But yeah, I mean, mate, things aren't all. Here we go. I'm just going to bring it up on the screen now, guys, and then we'll get stuck into it, and we will discuss Graham Potter as well shortly. This is it here. So from Simon Phillips, just kind of summarising. So these are the reasons as to why Thomas Tuchel has been sacked. Football being played, I get it. Relationship/communication breakdowns with players and owners. Many players were considering their futures. Tuchel's energy changed, looked at walking. And obviously Potter, Poch, more being considered. I would agree with those reasons, but we could go as far back as pre-season, George, where let's be perfectly honest, the pre-season tour was an absolute shambles. I know it was obviously organised under the old regime. It was shambolic. We were flying all over the place. We did more flying than we did playing football. We're going across multiple time zones, and we were. And is there any wonder we were woefully underprepared for the season? We played 4 games of pre-season. Is there any wonder we were undercooked? The pre-season tour, you could already see that potentially the writing was on the wall. There's a bit of a strain there. I'd never seen Thomas Tuchel that angry after that Arsenal game before. A change in the way he speaks, a change in his demeanour and whatnot. You could even tell as far back as then, for me, that not all was well. I mean, when you look back at that pre-season, George, you look at it now and you think things weren't right from then almost, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's been the beginning of the end for a long time. You can see it in a manager's demeanour as well. The fact that, like many Chelsea managers that have been and gone, start very animated, very like camera friendly, jumping up and down on the touchline, never sit down. This whole season, he's been sat in his chair, unsure what to do. He's still being honest, but I mean, particularly, you know, in some of those press conferences, just almost, well, you can even look at that photo there. He just looks lost, like out of sorts, unable to really unlock any differences to how to turn things around. And I think when you get to that point, that translates onto the pitch. And once the players start feeling that actually the manager hasn't got a clue how to turn this around, it's toxic. And I don't think there was any way back. And when I saw that press conference last night, mate, I remember texting the group chat. I wouldn't be surprised if he was gone in the morning. Certainly under Abramovich, he would have been gone. Yeah, I think he knew he was getting the sack after that result. I honestly do, because he just looked.
Well, I mean, by all accounts, he was surprised that he got sacked in the meetings today. I mean, he took it well, but he was surprised that it had kind of come to that. I mean, obviously, another potential big issue, is the fact that Boehly wanted Ronaldo and Tuchel wasn't that keen on it. There was a little bit of a falling out there. I mean, do you think? For me personally, I think a lack of a director of football this summer has been a massive issue. I think it's really been a huge problem, because normally the owners will communicate with the director of football, and then the manager will have a small bit of input. But you very much feel that with Boehly and his guys like Begdad Eghbali on the board as well, when Tuchel's going into conversations with them, it's very much like a 2 versus 1 situation. There's kind of no middle ground. It's, you know, Boehly's got his thoughts, Tuchel will have his thoughts, but Boehly's guys that are on the board are going to share the same views as him. So Tuchel's very much going into conversations, kind of one arm tied behind his back. He's kind of got no one to back him up, or no middle ground that a director of football would bring. How big an issue do you think a lack of director of football's been? I think it's been absolutely massive.
Yeah, it has been. And look, there's one point that I will back Thomas Tuchel up on, is I think, you know, if you're going to walk away from a job or you get sacked or whatever, you've got to stick by your principles. And, you know, if he didn't want Ronaldo and we didn't bring him in, that's fair enough, because I think that once you start compromising what you want to do as a manager and as a coach because you're trying to please someone else, you're dead in the water before you even get going. So fair play to him. The devil's advocate side to that, and something that I actually listened to weeks ago that stuck in my head for some reason, that Simon Jordan said on TalkSport, is you have to remember that the managers are employees of the football club, and the people who put the money in, they have every right to say and make the decisions. And actually, as a manager, you need to be on board with those decisions. And if not, you have to die by the sword. Him rejecting Ronaldo, let's say that was true, and Boehly wants Ronaldo in, and he says no because it doesn't fit the system. You've got to live and die by that sword, because now the performances have been dire. We've not scored goals, and Boehly can probably sit there and say, well, I told you so. You should have got Ronaldo.
I think, Tuchel's reservations are about how it might upset the dressing room and whatnot. And I get that, but where's the middle ground here? You can see how owners and stuff fall out with managers, because if you don't want a player, who's got the last say in this? Is it the manager or is it the owner?
It's the owner, isn't it? The owner's got the last say, because they're the ones fronting up the money. Tuchel's an employee of the football club.
Yeah, but I know he is, but he's also a right to have his views. I mean,
yeah.
But director of football, I think, has done no favors. I think.
No, I agree.
Petr Cech leaving, who he had a close relationship with and a great working relationship, was a big blow as well. The fact that he's not been able to fully concentrate on footballing matters throughout the summer is another big issue. I think that's really distracted from the task at hand. I'm not saying if there's been a director of football that, you know, we wouldn't have had these results this season. We may well have done, but it's been a massive blow, and it's been a big problem. It really has. But I mean, George, apparently, you know as well that the atmosphere around the training ground wasn't great. Certain players not happy with the methods. Certain players not happy with kind of the amount of playing time they were getting and whatnot. I mean, how much responsibility do the players have to take here? Because ultimately, it's always going to be the manager that loses his job, because you can't sack the players. But these players have got a lot to answer for as well.
100%. And I don't like it at all. I don't like the fact that we hear all these stories about players unhappy and training shit. Well, I bet Thomas Tuchel wasn't told this by the players. Lack of respect. And we've seen it from Chelsea before. We very clearly saw Chelsea players down tools when Mourinho was in all sorts of trouble.
We've seen it loads of managers.
And, you know, players, you know, they get their wages, they get their extortionate amount of money, regardless if they play shit or not. Do very little. I know they've sacrificed a whole lot to get there, but let's be honest, they go in, a day for them is a couple of hours training with some rehab in the afternoon, they go home. Hardly a day's work, really, to perform on a football pitch. And I bet no one in that dressing room had the bollocks to talk to Thomas Tuchel and say, look, I'm sorry, Gaffer, but we're not really enjoying the training. We're a little bit uneasy. Of course they didn't. And I'm not saying that this was the same situation where they were downing tools. I don't believe that. I still think even last night you could see that they were trying to unlock the door. It just looked as if we were out of ideas, and that stems from the manager not knowing what his best team was still. After a whole year of work, bringing in, Lukaku, for example, gets forgotten about now, but that was disastrous. I think a lot of players lost faith when that didn't work out. And still not getting the best out of players, and the forward line, despite all the forward so-called talent we have. Whether that's been overestimated or not, I don't know. But I think, yeah.
I mean, do you think there's... I'm just going to read this out first, and I'm going to just come back to something else. But Simon Phillips, again, has been spot on throughout a lot of this window. There was a feeling in the dressing room that this was back in end of April. There is a feeling in the dressing room that it's costing them key players and could plunge the head coach Tuchel's future into doubt. That was Tom Ruddy from the Times reporting that. Unfortunately, as I understand, there's some truth to the above. And then Simon Phillips today quote tweeting that saying, "I don't want to believe it, but been told for weeks now that Tuchel has lost many players in the dressing room, style of play, arguments, much more. Not saying it's right, but that's what's happened here." George, how much of a problem is player power these days in football? I think it's got a ridiculous amount of say in it. I also think it's wrong that players have got direct lines of communication to the owners. If you're not happy, they just go straight to the owner. If you've got a problem, go and speak to the manager. Do you think there's the player power issue is a massive thing? We've seen not saying this group, but Chelsea squads and players in the past. We've seen it a number of times. They're not afraid to chuck a manager under the bus.
Yeah, I really don't like it, and that's why probably a lot of people don't like football as much anymore, because it's the only line of work where all these things seem to happen. You wouldn't, the amount of stories we've heard from Stamford Bridge where players have not been sacked, but they're allowed to shoot players on site and all the rest of it. It's just, I just don't. Where's just the level of morals and respect and decency? Trying to deal with things in house before going upstairs and basically slagging off the very person who's put so much faith in you, or and I'm not saying that's everyone. And look, we don't know if this is true. This is a reliable source, but no one really knows what's happened behind closed doors other than those very close to the players. So let's not slag off all the players, but we have seen this pattern before, and there's no smoke without fire. So I think there has been, but I think football's just changed. I don't see what's wrong with having arguments with the players. If you ask any of the class of '92 with Sir Alex, and like you say, you ask any of the class of '92 about Sir Alex and the amount of bust-ups they had and all the boots flying, that's how you used to deal with it. Get it out of your system, tell someone their shit, and then we carry on.
I'd much rather see players arguing and shouting at each other on the pitch and in the dressing room. It shows they care. I don't want this, none of this. They just look like they don't care. I mean, the classic phrase, losing the dressing room, but it's coming out now that Tuchel had lost a number of key players in that dressing room for whatever reason. Players said to be unhappy at being played out of position on a number of occasions and things like that. Now, I have slight sympathy with that. But also, on the flip side, I'm like, you're a footballer. If you're told to go out on the pitch for Chelsea Football Club, wherever you're playing, you go and give your best in that position, even if it's not your natural position. And I've been very critical of Thomas Tuchel not playing players in their proper positions. But as a footballer, if you're employed by a football club and if you're playing for Chelsea and that manager says, right, so-and-so, you're going to play, you're not playing in your natural position, you're going to play somewhere else. So, for example, I don't know, whatever it is, Mount, you might play, you might drop deep or whatever it is. That was a shit example, but I can't think of one right now. But do you know what I mean? You go out on the pitch and you might be pissed that you're not playing where you want to play, but you go and give 100% effort. You don't down tools, do fuck all, and then go and moan about it behind the gaffer's back. You don't do that. And if you've got a problem with it, go and speak to the manager and say, look, Thomas, I'm not happy that I'm being played out of position. What can we do about this? Why are you playing me here? I prefer to play here. And you have an adult conversation about it, like mature men. You don't go crying to the owners and making a fuss about it.
But they're not, are they? They're spoiled children who are given so much money at a young age, and they know that their job's safe regardless. Like they don't, yes, there's always a danger. A new manager comes in, you might not be favoured, and you might be on the bench. But I don't mind. I wouldn't mind sitting on the bench for 100k a week, to be honest with you, at Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah, and it's not a money thing, but George, I know we can speculate number of key players that we kind of lost the dressing room. I mean, I'm not really sure who those players would be. I would imagine,
I reckon, is one.
I would imagine that Hakim Ziyech and Christian Pulisic. I know they're not key players, but I think it's clear that Tuchel and Pulisic was a no-go. I think Hakim Ziyech is another one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mason Mount was potential. This is purely speculative, and I'm by no means saying this, but you're looking at key players for Chelsea. Mason Mount falls into that bracket. I for sure don't think it's Thiago Silva or Koulibaly or anyone like that. I don't think it's Edouard Mendy. But you're looking at key players on the outfield pitch. Mason Mount falls into that. I'm not saying that they could well have had a bit of a bust up, but Mount's form is fucking awful at the moment. I mean, I'm not saying that's all down to Tuchel and whatnot, but I don't know who do you think these key players? I mean, ultimately it doesn't really matter, but I mean, once you've lost the dressing room, the writing's on the wall at the end of the day.
I think Mason Mount is in the conversation because if you look at it, Frank Lampard, he idolised him as a when he was growing up, and he gave him his opportunity, and he was playing well. But played well under Thomas Tuchel as well, but he's been given a slightly different role, and he's not sure where he plays, and then obviously dropped for a few games, and he has struggled. I think he has struggled generally to get on side with Thomas Tuchel's tactics, but. I don't, like you said, mate, it's all speculation. It's all, we could count maybe, other players that have perhaps left. Maybe a lot of players disagreed with Callum Hudson-Odoi kind of being shafted out of the club with so much promise and so much talent. I don't know. But I think ultimately he did lose a lot of those players, even if it wasn't.
The writing's on the wall once that happens at the end of the day.
Yeah, but, I mean, you could just sense it.
What I was going to say was, mate, by the way, guys, before I get onto this, almost 100 of us in here. So keep smashing those likes, get the likes up. There's nowhere near enough likes for the amount of people that are tuning in. So please do smash that like button if you haven't done so already. And guys, please do subscribe to the channel as well. We are 20 subscribers away from 1.6K now. So I reckon there's at least 20 of us in here that aren't subscribed to the channel. So please do just move your mouse over to that subscribe button and just give it a click for us. Support the channel. Would really appreciate it. Keep subscribing, guys, and keep smashing those likes. George, it's been reported and confirmed as true that the decision wasn't in reaction to losing 1-0 to Dynamo Zagreb last night. It was right. Even if Chelsea had won, this decision still would have been made. But the decision had been just made 2 games ago. So that would suggest that the decision was made after the Southampton game. Your thoughts on that?
Doesn't sit well with me because I think regardless of what I thought about Thomas Tuchel needing to go, I think you either sack him or you just keep him on. I don't see why you would decide after Southampton and then just give him 2 games anyway, if that's what they've decided. I think it does show a naivety in the fact that you always get this with new people that come into any line of work. Say if you get a new boss at work, they always come in with this bulldozing approach where they want to change this, that, and the other and put their own imprint. And
you have the opposite. You can actually end up having the opposite effect if you come in and try and change too much.
Think how much they've changed in such short space of time. They've changed a lot of the upstairs.
Well, they've ripped up the structure above Thomas Tuchel that he really enjoyed working with. I get it that you want to come in and you want to have your own people in. That's fine. But what my big issue is that you've taken the structure out above him. Okay, your new guys will come in and you want to bring your own people in. Fine, but don't take that structure out and then have no one in to replace it during your first transfer window. This is a new sport. You don't really know it that well. Like that's asking for problems.
Well, only time will tell whether he could come out, in a couple of years' time after another 2 managers down the line say he got it wrong. We don't know. Just because he's made a decision doesn't mean it's the right decision. A lot of people are in your camp that's saying this is absolutely outrageous and the timing's off and all the rest of it. For me, I just see it as a classic Chelsea model. Where Potter will probably come in, will start a good bounce and might even win something at the end of it, and that's just how we're going to roll. And then a couple of years' time, we'll be on the same program talking about how shit it's gone with Potter and he's out the door. It's just, we live and die, but we're Chelsea fans. We know if we know anything, we know the fact that no Chelsea manager is safe and they don't get a lot of time, and that is just.
Mate, there's a lot of things coming out as well. I mean, Jason Burt in the Telegraph reporting Tuchel did not take kindly to being asked to explain his tactics and team selections. I'm not sure if that's in that.
I know the owners are.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that means to the owners or to the players.
Well, if it's for me, the owners, I think that's outrageous.
That it's behind the paywall, hard times and all that. So I can't read the whole article because I'm not subscribed to the Telegraph. But if that is true, you would imagine like Tuchel's obviously going to explain tactics and selections to the players. If it is the owners, which that would suggest it is, I think that's totally outrageous that you're being asked to explain your tactics to the fucking owners.
Oh, mate, it's like me asking well, you, for example, you're a PT asking you to be like, oh, well, why did you decide to do this program when I've got no expertise in it whatsoever? It's like, how dare you criticize what my years and years of work for just because you've got the money sitting on your high horse in America and thinking that you know more about football than I do. I just think I do find outrageous. But then you come back to the point, he's fronting up the money. He owns the football club. He has every right to ask these questions if he wants to. That's life, whether you agree with it or disagree.
Mate, there's loads coming out there. I mean, I can't be bothered to just keep sharing it all on the screen. I'll just read through it. But This Jason Burt article, Tuchel believes he was sacked far too early. He accepted it and began clearing his desk. There was no shouting. Tuchel also, that sounds like we're at school here. Jesus Christ. I mean, Tuchel rejected approaches from Barcelona and Manchester United last season, feeling it was his duty to stay at Chelsea given the turmoil at the club. And this is one of my points before I come back to some other things, is that Tuchel could have easily walked under that sanctions thing. He could have just had, you know what? He could have been like, I've had enough. Like, he stuck with us through our toughest periods, and yet the first sign of toughness under him, he's been turfed out. I think that just doesn't really sit well with me. Let's move on from that little bit. Where are we? George, I wanted to get your thoughts on. This was about Anthony Gordon. And how obviously Todd Boehly's coming. They're using a new data-driven approach. This is kind of by Fabrizio Romano and Ed Aarons in The Guardian. I'm just going to bring this up now. By the way, guys, 113 of us in here. Keep smashing those likes. Keep getting involved in the chat. And please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Would really appreciate it. Right. Anthony Gordon. George, I know this was one that you were fuming about. The ownership had been attempting to foist, that's an interesting one, I don't think I've ever heard of foist before, foist players on Thomas Tuchel, with one case being Anthony Gordon. Thomas Tuchel did not want Gordon. Boehly's data analysts had pushed for him after being impressed by his performance metrics. Boehly had learned that senior players were unhappy with Tuchel's tactics. Let's get to that bit first. George, first this bit. The fact that the owners were looking to thrust players onto Tuchel, mainly Gordon. What are your thoughts on that? But this is all coming out now. It's almost like journalists are sitting on this and then they're just waiting to release it as soon as it's sacked. I always find that sort of thing a little bit odd. But I mean, when you've got owners saying you should bring a certain player in and the manager doesn't want him, that's always going to cause friction, isn't it?
Oh, mate, like even just reading a couple of these comments out, if these are true, there's no wonder the relationship broke down and you're pissed off if you're Thomas Tuchel. As someone who's just been here 5 minutes coming to you thinking they know a player better than you do, or their analyst has come in and got all the statistics. Well, I would have just told him to fuck off, to be honest.
Mate, it's like,
and you can see it though, can't you? Like a manager who's pretty much, been at the very top elite level of sport for so long, and then there's some fat American person comes in who calls the sport of soccer and says, oh, I've got this analyst from wherever it is, LA, saying, oh, Gordon's decent, we need to get Gordon. And him saying, are you serious? Like, are you telling me to do my job? Like, you can see it. I'd love to be a fly on the wall at Stamford Bridge in these moments, but you can see why it broke down. You can see it.
Yeah, it's all coming out now, and you can definitely see kind of what's been going on. It's not acceptable. We're perfectly clear about that. That is not successful. I mean, the next thing I wanted to move on to, I'm going to get to this last bit here, and then we're going to move on to something else quickly. Boehly had learned that senior players were unhappy with Tuchel's tactics. Tuchel was prepared to let Brozier leave as he didn't think he was ready, but he ended up receiving a new 6-year contract. Tuchel and Boehly had all but stopped communicating.
Yeah.
George, like, what your thoughts on that? I mean, you know, he's learned. I mean, yeah, okay. Senior players are unhappy with the tactics. I'd love to know what senior players they were. And okay, the tactics might not have been great, but I'll tell you what was just as bad as the tactics. Whatever the tactics are, it's inexcusable to go out and perform on a football pitch like that. It just is. Or you might not like the tactics, you might not like the manager, but when you cross that line onto the football pitch, you give your best. And I'm sorry, there's a number of players that recent weeks have not been given 100% at all.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And that is the nature of the beast at the moment. And, you know, the manager's almost powerless in that sense, because the players do determine whether a manager, you know, stays in the job or doesn't. I mean, and I get it from an owner's point of view to kind of maybe give both. You know, if you're spending that amount of money to own something and you watch it and you see it's very negative and it's very defensive and shit, then you're obviously going to be like, well, I want to see excitement. I want to see goals. And I mean, even when Roman came in, he was hiring and firing left, right, and centre because he wanted us to win the Champions League. He wanted us to be this unbelievable side that were great on the eye and dominate left, right, and centre. And anyone who didn't match that was gone. You know, even the Mourinho relationship broke down because of, you know, I don't know,
transfers and whatnot. Yeah,
and, you know, not great football at times. Couldn't do the Champions League. Now, Tuchel obviously did the Champions League, but when you're watching something that's, you know, perhaps not the best to watch, I get that from a frustration from an owner's point of view. They want instant, you know, great football. But serious questions have to be asked about the players here. But it doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I mean, you only have to listen to all the problems that Manchester United have had within their club for the last couple of years, and Keane saying there's no characters in the squad and people down tools and all the rest.
I was just going to say on that, mate, because I know you haven't got the most amount of time. I do want to get your thoughts on I do want to get your thoughts on Potter. Fuck, I forgot what I was going to say now.
Players or
players. Oh fuck! It was really good as well. You wouldn't. I mean, yeah, it was a fucking good point, and I've forgotten it. Anyway, Harry, big up, mate. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. There was something that I was going to say, and it was actually decent, and I forgot it. Oh fuck!
Fucking hell, mate.
That's really embarrassing. Oh yeah, it was about. I'm not saying that Tuchel was exemplary by any means. I think one of the biggest L's he took was the fact that he said no to Tchouaméni and chose Saul instead. That was on his decision. We could have got Tchouaméni last summer, not the summer just gone, the summer before, and Tuchel said no to him. He felt he wasn't ready, and now he's gone to Real Madrid and he's one of the best holding midfield players around at the moment. That was a loss there. I'm not saying that Tuchel was perfect by any means. I'm not saying there's no criticism from him, or he was perfect. That's just not the case. I just think he's been very hard done by. And now that all this stuff is starting to come out, it's clear that things weren't great. But I mean, there's nothing to suggest, George, that the next manager, which we'll come on to, isn't going to have these same issues with the ownership group.
Yeah, I mean, by the looks of it, whether you like it or not, these owners are not pissing about, and they're very bullish. In such a short space of time. And again, when you put that much money into a football club, they'll want things very quickly. They're very demanding people. And we'd obviously, knowing the so-called Chelsea model of hiring and firing staff, we probably expect a little bit of a bounce, a little bit of a lift with those players that perhaps are unhappy with Tuchel. And certainly under Graham Potter, who you'll come on to, I'm sure we've probably got a more exciting brand of football to come that's going to be a little bit more expansive. Certainly suit probably some of those forward players, and you never know, he might get a complete tune out of them. But there's no guarantee, and this certainly won't be the only sacking under Boehly's reign.
Mate, I think we should maybe hold fire on this Graham Potter deal. Liverpool 3-0 down. Maybe we could get Klopp.
Yeah. I think the one thing I'll say about any manager who wants to join Chelsea is be careful, because your reputation can be.
This is what I'm saying, mate. We're gonna come on to the new manager now, and it's, by all accounts, it is all but Graham Potter. Yeah. I think the only thing that would stop it from being Graham Potter is him not wanting the job, basically. The Chelsea job is effectively Potter's to lose, and he could be in charge as early as the trip to Fulham on Saturday lunchtime. two things. I know football's a fickle business, and they've obviously, the ownership group have obviously gone behind Thomas Tuchel's back here. They knew that they would have been looking at Graham Potter for a while now. There's no way they sacked Tuchel this morning and then suddenly at the end of the same day, they've almost got a deal in place for Graham Potter. They've obviously been looking at this, and football is a fickle game. There's a lot of backstabbers at the top level, and this is just another thing. We know that clubs will speak to other managers whilst the current manager's still in post. You don't sack someone without having someone lined up. That's just how it goes. But the job's effectively Graham Potter's. I mean, George, your thoughts on it? For me, I mean, they still might speak to Mauricio Pochettino, but people close to Pochettino believe that it's going to be Potter. Your thoughts on Graham Potter? For me, I think he's an exciting young manager. But let me make it perfectly clear. This is a massive gamble, by the way. This is a big gamble. I'm not saying we've taken some complete unknown and we're thrusting him in at Chelsea, but this is a guy who's done very well at Brighton, working on low budget. His team plays attractive football. They consistently exceed expectations year in, year out, but it's a completely different kettle of fish at Chelsea. We've gone from a manager that's won the Champions League to a manager that's never played in the Champions League. This guy's had a couple of Europa League games with Östersunds, I think, in Sweden. Like, this is a big risk at the end of the day. We don't know what he's going to be like at a top level club. The pressure ramps up. If you lose 3 or 4 games at Brighton, I'm not saying that no one's asked, but it's kind of expected, and you just go again. You lose a couple of games at Chelsea, people start talking about your job, and the media coverage is much more intense as well. Can he handle that? Can he handle these things? Can he get us playing more attractive football? Yes, he may well do. But George, this is still a major gamble.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on this one. I think this is a huge gamble. One of our friends in the chat, if you're talking about a new project, I agree. I think it's nice to see.
I think as a project
a
manager,
young English manager come into a club and being given the opportunity to manage a top club. I think that's great. But make no mistake, this is a huge gamble. A manager, credit to him, he's obviously a fantastic coach, and you don't get a team like Brighton performing the way they do without being one. But he's always been overachieving. It's easy to be in a club that don't expect much, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And he comes to a big club like Chelsea. You need a certain character and a persona to be able to deal with the pressures of you could be out of a job inside, quite literally, as we've just seen, 6 games if you don't do your job. He loses 6 on the bounce. I'm not saying he's out, but I'm saying that you need to be a certain type of person to deal with it. And
what do you think of him, mate? Do you?
I don't know a lot about him.
Do you like him? You look at the work that he's done at Brighton? He's undoubtedly done a good job, and it's clear that he could be a very good manager. And I agree with you. It's nice to see a young English manager actually getting a shot at a top job. Because very, very rarely do any English managers actually get a decent shot at a top job, or British managers or whatever. We have Brendan Rodgers with his spell at Liverpool, but not many British managers get a shot at the top jobs. Obviously, Alex Ferguson was the exception, but you don't see it very often. So it's nice to see in that sense. But I mean, how do you see him doing, mate? Do you fully expect him to take the job?
Oh, mate, they don't come calling. He's riding a wave at a club that he's reached the ceiling, I believe. And when a club like Chelsea come calling, I think you'd be foolish not to take it. I mean, if he turns away from it, fair play to him, because he's got a great thing going on at Brighton. And like I said before we started this conversation, if he's going to take it, you need to realise that if it goes wrong, your reputation gets thrown out the window with you, and he'll be very, very lucky to get another job at a good Premier League club after a horrendous time at Chelsea. It could be the downfall. We've seen it with lots of managers who have managed Chelsea before. It's an unknown quantity, mate. Only time will tell. But what is exciting is what you said. It's nice that we're actually going to see this.
Say that again, mate. You've just frozen slightly. I don't know if you need to come back out and go in again or not. But yeah, George, you have
better.
Sorry, say that again, mate. You just
and people say, well, Pep only does well because he's been at clubs that have all the money and all the players. So it's the same here going the other way. It'd be nice to see, can someone who's young, talented, modern coach, can he cope when the pressure's really on? And but this is a gamble.
how important is it now, mate? I know we talk about patience at Chelsea and we talk about long-termism, but this is going to be crucial. This is going to be a big test of the new ownership, because Potter comes in, that Boehly and stuff have said that they want this guy to be a long-term manager. They wanted the next manager to be a long-term manager. They didn't view Thomas Tuchel as the guy to lead Chelsea in the long term. Okay, you can agree or disagree with that. We've been debating that for a while. But what I'm saying is this, like, if he's here for the long term, which the owners are saying he will be, and they want him to be here for the long term, they're going to have to be patient and have to accept, as we do as fans, that when there's difficult moments and we lose 2 or 3 games in a row, we get a couple of wins in 10 games. We can't just be calling for the manager to be sacked or getting rid of the manager. You know, we've got to, you know, something's got to give. You know, people thought it would change with Lampard. They thought he'd be a project manager. People thought it would change with Tuchel. You know, people have expectations. People say things. And then when the situation slightly changes, they do the easiest thing and they press the panic button. How important is it now that actually, regardless of what set of results we go for, I'm not, obviously, if we're like 10th in the table or something ridiculous like that, then you might change your mind. But how important is it, though, that we actually have patience with Graham Potter and the ownership group have patience with him as well?
In an ideal situation, I'd love to believe that, again, he's given time and that Chelsea go down a different route, and regardless of results or league position, he's given 2-3 years to instill what he wants to do. But the reality of it is it that important because of what we've achieved before? I'm probably one of very few that I don't believe any of the nonsense anymore. That's why I was so upset with the Lampard thing, because we were promised this and then they got rid of him. So I now don't believe anything that they say. So they're saying this next manager is going to be long-term is absolute bollocks. If he does shit and we're, you know, wherever we are in the league and we're not winning games, he'll be gone. And it's because owners they just want success. They're greedy and they can't. No one's patient in football, and that's it. But that's my last contribution on this, because I've got to go after this. But
yeah, that's fine, mate. If you need to shoot, very quickly. I might carry on for a sec. Very quickly, mate. It's understood Chelsea are close to appointing a new sporting director, with sources even suggesting the new man has had some influence on the move for Graham Potter. I mean, I don't know. That could be a possibility, but I mean, I'm not sure. We obviously need a new director of football, and it would make sense for the new manager to have some say in it. But again, it's shady's goings on behind the scenes.
Shady's all over.
It is a little bit shady, but yeah, mate, if you need to shoot, that's fine. Mate, thank you so much, George. Thanks for your time, bro. Appreciate it as always. I'm going to carry on for a little bit, guys. New sporting director coming in then potentially. No, Adam. I get an owner wants success, but you've got to be realistic here. Like, Graham Potter's going to come in. It's going to be his first time managing a big football club. You know, you can't just push the button at the first time things go wrong, because things will go wrong under Potter. We will lose matches and we will go through bad patches of form. Like, the answer to getting success is not always just sacking the manager. You know, new sporting director and new manager. Yeah, RD agreed. It will be that. By the way, guys, almost 200 of us in here. So keep getting those likes up. We can definitely get to at least 100 likes. So please keep smashing that like button. And also, guys, please subscribe to the channel as well. Help me get past that 1.6K mark. So if you're tuning in now and you're not subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel. Would really appreciate it a lot, guys. Would really appreciate it. Yeah, new sporting director. I think the sporting director thing, we touched on it earlier. It is really, really important to have a sporting director in. Someone as a middleman between the manager and the owners, you know, someone that the owners can communicate with, someone that is just going to be in charge of the football matters at the club. Mitchell, sorry, before I get to that, agree, Potter should be afforded more time. He should be. And it's easy to say that he should be given time, but, you know, fans are very impatient. Owners can be very impatient. We can't sit here now and call for the manager to have time and then say when the results aren't going well at the first time, we should maybe look at replacing the manager. You know, we can't keep going in this cycle, in my opinion. You know, we've got to get to a point where we actually give the manager time, allow him to implement his ideas. This is a massive rebuild at Chelsea. This is far bigger than anyone thought it was going to be. And it takes a lot longer than 6 games. And let me get to these and I'll get back to what I was saying. Do you think January targets, we may not get them, such as Alvarez? I believe that Alvarez is still a target in January, whether that was a Tuchel target or not. there will be money to spend for Graham Potter in January, and it'll be interesting to see what he does with these with this money and with this group of players. We know that Graham Potter likes to work with young players. We just obviously sold Billy Gilmore to Brighton. I think Graham Potter would have been a big part of that, and now the Potter seems to be moving on. We could have maybe kept Gilmore if we knew about that. But look, the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, there's a recall option on his loan spell in January from Leverkusen. Now with Graham Potter coming in, who likes young players, could we potentially see Callum Hudson-Odoi coming back into the fold? What does it mean for the future of Romelu Lukaku now that Thomas Tuchel has gone? Is there a way back for him at Chelsea? Who knows? But there's definitely going to be some interesting points for sure, like on what Potter's going to do. Let me get to this. How many outings did the Deutsche Maestro banner get? Oh, I think I don't know if it was only one. Maybe I'm not too sure. How were his last 50 games compared to Lamb? I'm not sure on the stat on that, but one stat that the owners weren't pleased with that in Thomas Tuchel's first 50 games in charge, we conceded 24 goals, but then in the second 50 we'd shipped 53. Now, whatever way you look at it, that is an alarming change in fortunes at how we can suddenly concede basically twice as many goals, more than double the amount of goals that we conceded in the first 50 in the last 50. I mean, look, the football has not been good. I'm under no illusions it's not been good, but people need to realise that just replacing the manager is not going to change, is not going to solve all the issues. Graham Potter will come in. Do you know what? We'll probably win against Fulham on Saturday. We might win a few games in a row. We'll probably beat Salzburg at Stamford Bridge. We may well beat Liverpool the following weekend. But this is not going to solve the issues in the long term, constantly sacking the managers. It really isn't. Tabs, thank you, mate. Seen you on Lawrence's channel and didn't even know you had your own. Always like listening to your insights. So I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, mate. Thank you. Let me just hide that. The traditional bounce looks like Klopp will follow his compatriot back to Germany. I mean, I don't know what FSG are like as owners in terms of sacking managers. They've stuck with Jurgen Klopp for a number of years now, but not all is not well at Liverpool either. And I know we're not Chelsea, but I know they're not Chelsea, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jurgen Klopp didn't see the season out. I think Liverpool are in big trouble this season. They really are. But obviously, we're not going to wait and see if Klopp becomes available. I hope that Tuchel doesn't end up going to Liverpool. I'm not sure if he'd do that or not. I don't know what he's going to do. But yeah, it's interesting how things are going. I'm not sure who the guy's behaviour against Tottenham was low as it gets. What Tuchel's behaviour against Tottenham or Conte's? I think that Fulham will beat us. I wouldn't be surprised if Mitrovic packed us out and we let a few in. Matthew, I disagree with this. Shows the board has got ambition. Like, I get it. Let me just. I get it. Look, the board is shown. Look, it's not acting like. Look, for me, I think it's a ridiculous decision. I'm under no illusions that the football wasn't good enough. But as far as I'm concerned, you don't say that someone is the manager for the project, and back him with £200 million of new players that he wanted. And then suddenly 6 games in, this guy's not the right man for the project. He was either the right guy for the project or he wasn't. He hasn't suddenly become the wrong guy because we've lost 2 of our first 6 Premier League games and we've lost our first Champions League game. He doesn't suddenly become not that guy. Let's have a look. Are you concerned that our lone player Levi's? Do you know what? 2 things on this. 1, Graham Potter would have been big in bringing Levi Colwill in. And also 2, because there's no option to buy, how invested are Brighton in actually playing Levi Colwill? Because there's not a chance to buy him at the end of it. So how invested are they in actually using him? I'm not so sure that they are, if I'm being perfectly honest. So that is a concern. I think the fact that Thomas Tuchel wanted to sanction selling Billy Gilmore, that's okay, but don't sanction the sale as an owner when you know that you're sacking that manager and the next manager that comes in might like to have a look at Billy Gilmore. There's a lot of things that don't make sense here. Look, I agree. Negative tactics and too much reliance on wing backs. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. Look, I'm under no illusions that the football was poor. It was poor, And there were big problems at the club. We were too easy to play against. We were too predictable. I get that. All those things I get. But what I'm struggling with is how that you can say that you want this guy to lead Chelsea through, to into the future for the next years. You back him with the money. You've given the players that he's asked for, and then 6 games into the season, where, by the way, we still are only 5 points off the top of the Premier League. It's not, yes, we've lost our first game in the Champions League group stage, but it's not like we're not going to qualify out of that group because we've lost the first game. Like, that's where it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with me how some of the players have behaved. It's obvious the things coming out now that things weren't good behind the scenes. You could tell there'd been a change in Tuchel's demeanour, a change in his body language, a change in the way that he is on match days. He was very much always up, shouting on the touchlines, very vocal, very passionate. In the last 2 games, he's just been sat there, not really doing anything at all. And that's a sign of things going wrong and his energy changing. And I don't blame him for his energy changing. I get one of the criticisms for me, he was too stubborn. Certain players getting picked week in, week out, regardless of how badly they are playing. That's going to piss off players that play in that position in a similar position, thinking, how can this guy be being picked every week when he's playing this badly? What's this, Adam? I understand the consternation with sacking Tuchel so swiftly. However, the standard that Chelsea has produced, I'm not disputing the fact that we've been incredibly successful over the last 15, 20 years under Roman Abramovich. But what I'm saying is that in the long term, I know 20 years is a long time, but it's not sustainable to keep hiring and firing managers every 18 months to 2 years. Look, we support the club. I totally agree that we support the club, but you also back the manager. And you can be pissed off with the way that your club's acted and how they've treated a manager, but you would still support the club. I would never, ever stop supporting Chelsea. There's been dark times. There's been the Jose sackings. I think I almost cried on the first time he left. There's been managers that have sacked that shouldn't have been sacked. Football style, those guys, there's over 140 of us in here. So people, please keep smashing the like button and please subscribe to the channel as well. There's loads of us in here tonight. There's plenty to discuss. I'm enjoying this conversation. So please do smash the subscribe button and please do keep smashing those likes as well, guys. Really important to do so. So please do that. Let's get what we got here. Where are we? I just hope we turn this around, whoever gets appointed. It's going to be Graham Potter. Look, it should be done tomorrow. I'll probably be back with a Graham Potter stream tomorrow about his intro and things that he needs to do. But yeah, it's expected to be Graham Potter. The only thing that would stop it from being Graham Potter, as I said earlier, is if he actually decides that he doesn't want the job, which I would be surprised if that would be the case. But what was I going to say? Yes, in terms of back to the chat, there was a few things that I was going to get to in there. You can also back the players. Yeah, of course you can. And I think that there's what I wanted to say on the players is the players aren't getting away scot-free in this either. There are a number of players that should be ashamed of themselves for the level of performance they're putting in on the pitch, the way they've conducted themselves, and the way that they the way they're potentially undermining the manager, going behind the manager's backs. I'm sure that there's been senior players or players within that squad that have gone directly to Todd Boehly and said they're not happy with how things are going. That for me is cowardly and it's snake-like. If you've got an issue as a football player, go and speak to your manager and have it out like men. Don't go crying to the owners like you're a little school kid and not getting your own way. This is professional sport. If you don't like something, you go and speak to the manager about it and you sort it out and you come to a decision. I feel like I want to cry. Yeah, honestly speaking, I know how you're feeling. Thank you, mate. Appreciate that, Adam. Guys, like and subscribe, as I've been saying. Tuchel seemed to go off the rails following his divorce. Look, that's another thing that I wanted to add in that I forgot to mention earlier because I was fuming and I was saying a load of other things, is that not only has Thomas Tuchel had to deal with the sanctions placed on the club, not only has he had to deal with being a director of football and whatnot this summer when he shouldn't be, taken away from his primary role of trying to improve things on the pitch, he was also last season going through a divorce from his wife of who he's got 2 girls with. Not only are you trying to manage Chelsea Football Club, you've got a divorce going on in your private life as well. Let's not underestimate how much this guy's actually been through. And I think he deserves to be treated with more respect. I really do. I think I think Boehly's quite frankly a shit on him, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think he's just taken a fat shit on Tuchel, and he's gone about it in the wrong way. And in my opinion, it stinks. I think it stinks. Bournemouth would have beaten us. We were that bad on the Tuchel. That's scary. Look, think that I don't want people to think that I feel that we were playing good football and it was acceptable how things were going under Thomas Tuchel. I'm not saying that. Things were going badly and they didn't look like they were improving. But my point is that with what he's done, the Champions League, the Club World Cup, the Super Cup, the money that he's invested, taking us to 6 out of a possible 7 finals in his reign, he at least deserved the time to try and turn this around. That's what I'm trying to say. If you get to a point in the season where it's not getting any better and you feel that we're in danger of missing out on the top 4, then by all means make a change if you need to. But I just feel that he deserved the time to try and turn this around and get the best out of these players and try and get us back to winning ways again. I think he deserves that time. But the fact that he wasn't afforded that time, I think, given everything he's done, is very, very harsh, and I think it's very unfair as well. That's what I'm trying to get at. I think he should have been afforded the time to try and get us out of this slump. This was our first real proper slump in form since he's been here. And I know towards the back end of last season, there were a few poor games. And yeah, it wasn't great at the back end of last season. Liverpool 4-0 down, are they? Maybe, guys, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I mean, it's been a dark day with Tuchel getting sacked, but seeing the Scousers getting stuffed 4-0 in Napoli is it's 4-1 now. 4-1. Luis Diaz has just scored 4-1. Hopefully there's no sort of ridiculous comeback. I'm hoping there's not, but it's 4-1. Luis Diaz did just score. But yeah, what we got here, TT sacking could come at the best time as the season is salvaged. What I'm saying is, though, like 6 games into the season is not ruined. It's not like we're in panic stations after 6 games. There's still another 32 games to go. That's why I feel that he should have been given the time to try and to turn this around. I think that's what we owed that to him. I really do think we owed that to him, to give him the opportunity to try and turn it around. And if leading up to the World Cup we're not in a good position, make a change during the World Cup. Then I just think it's very, very rash to make a change 6 games into the season without even giving the manager the time to bring players in. What comment is it? Identicate. If you want to send it in again, mate, I don't want to scroll back up and try and find it. So send your comment in a chat again, and I will bring it up on the screen and we can discuss it. Guys, keep subscribing to the channel as well, by the way, and keep smashing those likes as well. It was just joyless there. Yeah, look, the play, it was absolutely awful, the play. I'm under no illusions there. It was joyless. It looked very much like Tuchel was out of ideas. The players weren't playing for him. He'd lost the dressing room. I get that. It was terrible to watch. And to be honest, there perhaps was no coming back from this. But I just feel that he should have been given the opportunity to try and turn it around. And after 6 games, we're not in danger of not qualifying for the top 4 after 6 games. Top 4 is going to be hard this season for sure. But yeah, I think it's just a little bit. I don't know. Let me just get to this before I get to that. Klopp getting battered. TT last year, and that Southampton manager twice. Klopp was the only top German who didn't lose by a big margin. Right, okay. What we got here? I think it's the best time to pull the trigger. There's no ideal time to pull the trigger. Obviously, there's going to be better times than others, and you probably do it earlier into a season rather than later. But as I said, I just feel he deserved the time to try and switch it around. He was never turning this around, considering the games we lost: Leeds, Southampton, and Dynamo. No, I get you don't need 300 million to beat those teams, and in those games we just didn't turn up, and it looked like the players weren't playing for Thomas Tuchel, and there's big issues there. There's obviously been a lot going on behind the scenes that is now filtering out from journalists since the sacking news, that things weren't as good as we believe them to be at Chelsea during this time. Yet Ben Jacobs had said that Potter is verbally agreed. I expect that to be done tomorrow, unless he says no. If Potter comes in, he'll be a good appointment, but I'm just worried about if he'll bring us to silverware. I think as Chelsea fans, we need to readjust our expectations. We've been so spoiled under Roman Abramovich to expect basically trophies every single season, pretty much. I don't think in his tenure we haven't gone consecutive seasons without winning a trophy. You know, it's all the biggest gap there's been is one season not winning a trophy, and then the following season we win one. We've never gone back-to-back seasons without winning anything. And so I think, if Potter comes in, I think he will be a good appointment. But let's be realistic. I'm not expecting any silverware this season. If we can get a domestic cup, fantastic. That's a great achievement. But I'm not expecting anything. This season for me is about just making sure we got Champions League football next season. I know that sounds depressing, but I just think that's the way it is right now. I think going forward, I'll look at it like this. Tuchel came in and wanted his own guys, despite winning the CL with Lamp's players. Boehly has come in. Look, I understand that Boehly wants his own guys. I get that. That's fine. New owners come in. They've got new ideas. They want their own people on board. That includes guys in the back, behind the scenes, and that includes and it includes managers as well. But what my main point is that if you wanted a new manager, get a new manager in when you arrive. Don't say all the nice things about Thomas Tuchel. Oh, we want him. He's our guy. Spend 200 million quid on him, and then 6 games in decide he's not your guy and get rid of him. If you're coming in as a new owner and you've got an idea for a new manager in mind, get rid of him before the season starts. Get your guy in and then back your guy. You've just backed a guy with a lot of money on a lot of players that's turned out to not even be your guy. So what was the point in that? I just don't get it. What we got here, it feels like TT did something to really anger Boehly the way it happened. Yeah, look, Boehly's not been in. There's been a few things. The Cristiano Ronaldo thing was an issue. There's also the fact that that Boehly feels that Tuchel should have got more involved in transfers as well, in terms of the Jules Koundé one, where Xavi was key in convincing the player to go and join Barcelona. Boehly was, I think, annoyed that Tuchel didn't really get involved in terms of having phone conversations and whatnot. But I mean, if that's not how Tuchel operates, that's not how he operates. If you're annoyed that he's not phoned the player up to try and convince him to come, are we really getting annoyed about those things? Told Graham Potter has verbally agreed to take over as Chelsea boss. Formal paperwork expected to follow soon, with Chelsea able to finalise a point before Fulham this weekend. Soz Iv Noah. I'm not sure what that means, that last. But yeah, it's gonna be Potter. Who do you think is the most ideal manager? Yep, Graham Potter for me. I think for the obvious reasons. I'm not happy for Chelsea. No, I'm pissed. I'm not sure if you've noticed, guys. Who are we to complain about TT second? He became complacent and stale after winning trophies, and everyone could see the player's body language. Furthermore, yeah, look, I get it, but my point about the money is, if you're going to sack a manager 6 games in, don't give him all this money in the summer. Get rid of him before the season starts. If that's the case, the body language. I'm under no illusions there were issues. Yeah, we have. I'm not saying that I'm not grateful for that success. I've absolutely loved it. It's given me some of the best days of my life, some of the best memories that I'll have forever. But at the same time, we want to be winning Premier League titles, and right now we are a million miles away from winning Premier League titles. We really are. And for me, I feel the way to win a Premier League title now is to give the manager the reins to build a project over 4, 5, 6 years. That's how I see it. Like Liverpool, like City. For me, I can't see how you can build a project to win a Premier League title if you're sacking managers every 18 months and not allowing them to build a squad. That's my point, and that's what's got to change, in my opinion. Okay. What we got here? Graham will be no good for Chelsea. I think that's unfair. I think it's going to be a real tough one. It's going to be tough, and he'll have tough moments there. But at the end of the day, we've got to back this guy, and we've got to get fully behind him and hope that he does the best. I think he's an exciting young manager, and I think he's the perfect manager for a project. For the long term, Graham Potter's far more exciting for me than a Zidane or a Pochettino. That's for sure. We could have, Amazon Prime must be gutted. Yeah, they should have done us last season. They could have done us this season. It would have been fantastic. What we got here? Let me just get to the last couple of things, guys, and I'm going to round this out. Who do you reckon is the most ideal? Yeah, I think I've just answered that. I'd really like to see what Potter can get out of our attackers. They can't all be as bad as they've been lately. We need more goals. Yeah, look, let's make it perfectly clear. These attackers are not bad football players. But for whatever reason, whether it's the system, whether it's the way they're being told to play, whether they didn't like playing for the manager or whatnot, the reality is that even if you don't like that, you've got to go out and perform better than these players have been performing. Maybe the manager's not been giving them the confidence to go and perform. I'm not too sure, but you would like to hope that Graham Potter can get more out of these attackers. And let's be perfectly clear. I'm fully expecting a bit of a bounce for the sort of first 3 to 5 games. The first 3 to 5 games aren't necessarily going to mean anything to me under Graham Potter. It's very much what we're going to do for this whole season and into next season, where we're really going to get our ideas. We've got here, we sacked TT at a wrong time, but let's stop saying how we just sack managers every time. No, we did. Yeah, but he doesn't deserve that rep yet. No, I'm not saying that, but as a football club, that's what Chelsea do. You know, Thomas Tuchel's been here, has lasted 100 days under Todd Boehly and sacked. I'm not saying that Graham Potter's going to last 100 days and he'll be sacked. I'm not saying that. And I fully agree with that. That if this is the manager that Boehly wants, get his guy in and back him and see how often he changes it. But it'll be a real test of Boehly's patience and his way of operating when the going gets tough under Potter, which it will. Fully aware now, guys, we will be shit under Potter at some point. We'll go for a shit run of form. It's just the way it goes. So yeah, you know, let's see what he's like then, and see if he keeps that same energy that he's been preaching so far. If that was Roman, he would have been gone after Southampton for me under Roman. We need fresh energy and motivation. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so. No, Graham Potter's not confirmed. It should be confirmed tomorrow. He's expected to be the new manager. The only way he will not be the new Chelsea manager is if he decides himself that he does not want the job. Last night said it all as Tuchel didn't get off the bench once. Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, he was resigned to his fate, I feel. I know today he said that, you know, he wasn't expecting the sack and whatnot, but I could tell by his demeanour, by his body language, the fact that he didn't get out of his seat once and get onto the touchline during the game, that things weren't right and kind of the writing was sort of fully on the wall. I'm just going to check, guys, before rounding out, if there's been any sort of more news come in on that. Liverpool losing 4-1, fantastic. I mean, I personally think that Chelsea set up Tuchel to fail. They set Lampard up to fail, and it's the same cycle. I really do. And I think this is ruthless from Todd, and we have to see what kind of energy they're going to bring going forwards and see what it'll be like under him. But, you know, it's the way it goes. It's Chelsea Football Club. Nothing surprises me whatsoever with this team. There doesn't seem to be any further news. But, yeah, look, it's going to be Graham Potter, the new manager. Thomas Tuchel has been sacked. It seems like a good point to round out here, guys. I just want to say a massive thank you to Thomas Tuchel. Thanks for everything. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for what you've done for this club and in the hard times, fronting up and being a spokesperson, you know, forming such a great relationship with the fans. One of my favourite Chelsea managers of all time. I think could have gone down as the best if given the time to do so. But he's right up there with one of the best and one of the nicest guys as well. I don't know him personally, but the way he comes across, he's so personable. And a massive thank you to Thomas Tuchel. And it will be Graham Potter confirmed, we'd think, at some point tomorrow. So maybe I'll be back with a Graham Potter stream tomorrow before the Fulham game on Friday, Fulham preview on Friday. So, guys, a massive thank you from myself for tuning in. On your way out, still almost 100 of us in here as we round out. Please do smash the like button on your way out. Let's get those likes up. And please do subscribe to the channel on your way out if you haven't done so already. Guys, it's dark times at the moment. It's depressing, but the sun will shine on us again. Imagine not being Chelsea. Better times are coming. Keep the faith. Keep the blue flag flying high, and up the Chelsea.